So Jiseok Lee just won the San Diego Regional Championships. It's the first one for Scarlet and Violet, or at least the first like real, like big regional. Like everyone's paying attention to. Like people have like figured out the teams, how things work, and just like actually a solid meta. Um, it's not 100% figured out, but the creativity created by these players certainly shows that there's plenty of variance. Chisok's team is incredibly creative. Lots of low usage Pokemon, other than Meowscarada and Goldengo. Those are. This is a high ladder on Scarlet and Violet on Showdown, but he's got Meowscarada and Goldengo, and then you scroll all the way down here, and you get like 8% usage BAXCALIBUR, and then like 6% usage Mimikyu, Garganacl, Tauros. And so, these EVs aren't 100% correct. Going through and watching his previous game, his BAXCALIBUR definitely has less attack than this. It's definitely more defensive. I believe his Mimikyu is offensive, just because it has low HP, but, almost all of his Pokemon have high HP. His Garganacl's max, his BAXCALIBUR's max, his Tauros is almost max. I don't really know his Goldengo set, though, and I'm assuming his Meowscarada set is, 252, 252, 4, just because it's Focus Sash. Just makes sense. But just a very creative team. Jiseok hasn't played in person in a while, I believe since 2016 when he was Korean national champion. But he was in Players Cup, and seeing him play in Players Cup and Sword and Shield, he definitely showed that he's an actually incredible positional player. And so a team like this makes complete sense for him. You're going to be cycling your Intimidates with Tauros, essentially just, having a sort of counter to Dondozo in that kind of sense, having Salt Cure and having Tauros Intimidate. And then, having Mimikyu, it is open team sheet. We know that Mimikyu is not Trick Room, but essentially what Jiseok did is he had a bunch of priority moves. So, his BAXCALIBUR has Ice Shard, his Mimikyu has Shadow Sneak, his Tauros has Aqua Jet, and his Meowscarada has Sucker Punch. So 4 of his 6 Pokemon have, pseudo speed control, where they just, move first, regardless of, Tailwind, Trick Room, stuff like that. And so, very creative team.
Yeah,
And
one thing
he
that's
is
not
facing
represented by
up
those
against
accomplishments is Jiseok was just
Chuppa,
one of the best online
which,
players on time and
let's see if it shows his team anytime soon.
Maybe the same type of
Okay,
options,
so
but
it's
Mimikyu
essentially,
does not have
you know,
Trick Room on it,
Dondozo
so
Palmot
that's not
with,
a viable
Firewater
way
Grass
for
Core,
Jiseok to bring the
with
speed
Intimidate
in
himself.
his favor,
So,
but
an important, and really interesting note is, for this meta, coming into it, not a lot of people used Intimidate because Intimidate really fell off. I would say probably a couple weeks ago. Everyone was using Claire Amulet. There was no reason to run Intimidate, especially with like King Gambit, which actually was pretty prevalent. I think it's like 10 out of top 32 teams. But Intimidate was not prevalent at all. Let's see how many Intimidate users there are. There's Tauros. That's 1, 2, Arcanine. I believe this one had Intimidate, top 3. So top 3 had Intimidate. And then got 3 Tauroses, more Intimidate. Let's see. Tauros. Yep, Tauros. So a ton of Intimidate in this top 32. But, on the ladder, hardly any at all, in all honesty. Tauros Paldea has 6%. Arcanine is pretty decent usage, 13%. But, nothing like we've seen in the past. And, obviously, 13% and 6% don't add up to this, 50% top 32 Intimidate usage. And so, obviously, it was overblown in the top 32, but, throughout the entire tournament, not actually seen as much as we were expecting. another thing to note, Amoonguss did really well outside of top like 8, I would say. It had like one in top 8 and like a ton outside of top 8. So, Amoonguss is getting countered a lot by the higher teams. And Metagem, wow, I didn't even see that earlier. But definitely Intimidate having a lot more usage in the upper echelon of the tournament, and not, on the ladder itself. We're probably going to see another meta switch on ladder. I would probably say like almost everyone's going to start running Intimidate again, and we're probably going to have to start running stuff like Clear Amulet. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in Season 2, just because we get all those new Pokemon. Probably going to see a ton of Clear Amulet again, go through the cycle like we always do. At least as far as Series 1 goes, in the past we didn't have Clear Amulet. And that's why Intimidate was like 60% plus usage throughout the entire format. But really interesting to see it on the top teams for the finals.
You do have access to those priority moves that can help out a lot, like
so they're talking about Jiseok's team right now.
Sucker Punch on Meowscarada.
Having all of those priority moves rather than actual speed control. So Chuppa has speed control in just being naturally fast with Meowscarada, having that fake out on Palmot, and having plus speed Tatsugiri Dondozo. And so Chuppa has to worry about Intimidate himself, and since he didn't, he didn't really expect to see it in the tournament, which is fair. He didn't really see it. It worked out really well for him. He's ending up in the finals. And so this matchup is going to be really interesting, them both having Intimidate, because both of them didn't really expect it. And so like Jiseok's team, really low attack stats for the most part. And so they're either going to have really passive damage and win an end game where I would say Jiseok just positions better than Chuppa, because Chuppa can't really position just because he has to lock in to Dondozo at some point. He's definitely bringing Dondozo to this matchup. There's no way you don't, especially with Palma on your team. So
would be able to withstand the earthquake. The two main options
they both have to worry about that.
If you've got the Tatsugiri giving that Dondozo a commander boost, then it's invulnerable.
Something about these teams right now, just noticing, is they both don't have a way to lead into Meowscarada Goldengo. And noticing that, I think they're both just going to lead Meowscarada Goldengo, in all honesty. So this might just be like a 50-50 matchup.
And will not take the damage that way, but then you have Meowscarada that would take
maybe
probably
just gonna see
earthquake. It does have that grass typing to help that out,
both
but
do
then
that. It's gonna be very interesting because we know that Chuppa's team
that has protect.
They just said it. Goldengo on Chuppa's team has protect, and Jiseok's does not. It's choice specs, and so
would be able to make that
be very interesting.
Everything else just
but
doesn't
on the
look
reverse
as good.
end,
If you want Palmot and Arcanine to stay alive for some of the
Meowscarada has protect, and Chuppa's doesn't because it's choice band.
By the way, is these two players actually faced against each other already throughout the course of the tournament. Chuppa actually won 2-0, and so there is a lot of context going into this matchup. We weren't able to actually see them play throughout that set, but both players are coming into this saying, okay, I already have experience
fighting against you. Chuppa's probably going to do the lead that he did before to win 2-0, and Jiseok's going to counter that lead.
How to adapt against what he previously went against, and so I think from Chuppa's end, like Dondozo Tatsugiri is like the clear duo to play towards.
If Jiseok lost 2-0, I'm presuming that he didn't try and bring Goldengo Meowscarada. Probably trusted himself to be able to position into it, and he wasn't able to. It's my presumption.
Tricky, honestly. I think part of it is, can you get the Terror out, right? Because if you get Dondozo to Terror,
and so I
it's, I
think
believe, the Dragon
it's probably going to come down to whatever Chuppa leads turn 1 on game 1 to decide game 1, because Jiseok's definitely going to counter it or come up with his best game plan.
Here, but I don't think Salt here
probably
is as
Masquerade
easy
Goldango.
to just utilize successfully in this matchup because it is the rest on Dondozo set.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is that, you know, Garganacl does have that
so
wide
he's
guard
gonna
available,
lay,
so it might be able to stave off some of that.
Jiseok's going to bring Masquerade Goldango. He's going to bring Tauros, and he's going to bring BAXCALIBUR. It's my guess. Because Chuppa is going to bring some form of Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Masquerade Goldango. Most likely. Although he should... no, you can't bring Arcanine because you get super hard countered. Okay. So yeah, he's probably going to bring them some sort of Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Masquerade Goldango. Jiseok doesn't have a clear-cut Dondozo counter, but he has one in the fact that he has Tauros, he has really defensive Pokemon, he has Salt Cure, and he has Masquerade Goldango. And so all those Pokemon in themselves kind of counter the strategy just by living and dealing damage.
That spread damage.
This will be really interesting to see.
But you're still looking at having to take
I'm very much expecting
a hits.
Masquerade Goldango lead from Jiseok,
in a position to
and I'm curious to what Chuppa is going to bring.
You know, at what cost when you know that there's an Arcanine waiting in Chuppa's party as well.
He's definitely not bringing Arcanine.
Trainers are locking in their very first Pokemon for this game 1 of this best of 3 for the grand finals of the San Diego Regional Championships. And to kick things off,
Dondozo, because this is probably what Chuppa led to win 2-0 earlier. Either that or he's countering what Jiseok tried to do earlier.
So Jiseok going with probably the most offensive duo on his team, right? Like this combination just pressures with a lot of damage immediately. And I like the idea there where you can just start scaring away things a little bit. And of course,
you don't even know
here Dondozo's considering the Terra.
This probably has 100% to do with context.
Because otherwise Masquerade can just get
but
that super
his Masquerade can just
flower
protect.
Trick onto you. And so yeah,
so what? He's planning on getting speed boost.
On the opposing end immediately.
Yeah, well, that brings up, like, you know, maybe what you were talking about before. If you can force the Dondozo into a position where it is going to Terastallize immediately, then does Jiseok have options in the back to be able to deal with this Dragon Terra type that we are going to see it take on through this Terastallization?
There's no way he's that worried about Flower Trick.
We're also going to be able to deal better damage with the order up that we saw Chuppa select as well, but Masquerade is actually just going for a Protect here to kick things off.
And the Protect here really to try to, you know, not get KO'd or get brought down to a Focus Sash through U-turn, but Chuppa doesn't get caught off guard by that and actually U-turns into Goldango. So really nice pivoting there, recognizing, hey, Masquerade is not exactly the bulkiest Pokemon, and it is time for Tatsugiri. It is now on the field. Chuppa recognizes this duel is just so strong. Why don't I just start the game off with it immediately? And here we go.
Yeah, I mean, the U-turn is so smart as well. Because of Masquerade's natural speed, it is able to get that U-turn up before that Tatsugiri hits the field. And so we'll have to see how that's going to play a role as well. As the order up is going to start boosting attacks too, except for the fact that we
Goldango
do have the
Masquerade
Protect on the field. So
into whatever's in the back.
is not going to be taking any damage, but Dondozo still gets the speed.
So he's going to get some good damage off with Make It Rain.
Later on in the game, the Make It Rain though is still going to hurt. Look at how much damage it does to that Dondozo.
Yeah, one interesting thing to remember here is with Unaware on the Dondozo, the
both get rid of the Sash and whatever comes in.
Actually essentially aren't relevant.
It also does a ton of Goldango.
So that's one of the cool things you can actually take advantage of Unaware and keep utilizing that, but the Dondozo, of course, does
it shows that Jiseok's definitely just
damage,
switching out.
I think Jiseok honestly might not be too upset
because he can't protect
You got a fair amount of damage off
and
immediately.
doesn't have it.
One other interesting thing is the Masquerade does have knockoffs, so you can actually remove that Chesto Berry, making it so that if Dondozo uses rest, it won't be able to just wake up immediately as well.
Yeah,
no,
I
but
mean,
you definitely don't want to lose the Sash here if you're Jiseok, so you can't do that right now.
Talk, so that's not even an option as well for if the Dondozo is asleep, it won't be able to get an attack off either. Masquerade is going to leave the field here for Jiseok though, so going to have a switch into the Tauros. So you do have that Intimidate drop, and also because it's an Aqua Breed, you're not going to be taking as much damage coming through from that Dondozo either if it does decide to go for something like a Wave Crash. But it's also just a full swap on the board as well, as BAXCALIBUR makes an appearance, revealing that 4th and final Pokemon for Jiseok in this first turn.
I really like the approach here, you know, like bring out Tauros for Intimidate. Look how little damage that did, right?
Very little.
This is so smart from Jiseok, basically getting a big chunk amount of damage immediately with that Make It Rain, and now you've already forced the Terra out from Dondozo, right? The BAXCALIBUR on this team is actually Water Terra, so you can Water Terra and basically not take any damage or very minuscule damage from pretty much all of the attacks.
So Tauros and BAXCALIBUR have
Protect. Is that it is speed order up rather than attack order up, so the Dondozo isn't actually able to snowball very quickly in terms of damage output. So I think Jiseok, you know, Garganacl's been such a pivotal Pokemon on his team for the course of this tournament, but really good job to recognize, hey, it just doesn't make that much sense in a matchup where Dondozo has Rest and Chaozu Berry, and really, really smart here. We're going to see the Terra, and I think it makes so much sense to just Terra that BAXCALIBUR, make sure you don't faint from an order up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does give that speed boost, but even with all of that damage from the Make It Rain, you know, Dondozo is really not in a position to be able to take a super effective attack from this BAXCALIBUR very easily. Tauro's going to go for a Protect, though, so just to keep itself safe for this turn in case something else was going to be heading its way. But the order up is actually going to go into the Tauros here.
I also don't know about this call
to just trying to go for some of that damage, but despite that speed increase, this Icicle Spear is gonna hurt. Let's see how much it's able to do here.
That's hit number 1, hit number 2,
Loaded
hit number
dice.
3. Hit number 4?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So it is actually going to be able to survive. That's
a
pretty
5th one would be really
critical.
nice because you could just kill with Ice Shard here. You might go for it anyway. You're not 100% of the
could go for a Ice Shard here, but I'm not sure
from
that's
what I
actually
can
enough
tell,
to knock out, given the defense boost. From Jiseok's end, you could consider switching out the Tauros and then bringing it back in for Intimidate. I think this is actually one of the reasons why Tauros is picked up in usage going into this tournament. The main thing with Dondozo Tatsugiri is you're essentially stuck on the field once you combine forms, and so with Intimidate, you can actually get rid of those attack drops essentially. And with so many players now moving towards speed rather than attack for order up, you're really able to take advantage of the fact that they just can't deal that much damage.
It's kind of risking Sash here, but
so there's the switch from Jiseok, and there's Ice Shard.
It's only, it's only
the survival there.
So we'll see what he does.
So
clutch.
Dondozo able to use Rest, recover all of that HP.
So I guess Rest goes up,
because
but then
it was not affected by a knockoff earlier from this
Jiseok can just
do have that Chesto Berry
switch back out to
be
maintain his
consumed
Sash.
to get rid of that sleep
He's
condition.
probably just going to
so right
Icicle,
away, Dondozo back
or
up and
it is,
ready to go. And I think it's time to start firing off some of those Earthquakes before that Tauros starts to come back in.
Yeah,
just gotta get damage off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, you
could
just
consider switching
Earthquake here. You want to hit that.
Tauros. Now we already saw the Earthquake didn't do that much to BAXCALIBUR. What's tricky now is if you go for Rest again, you won't just wake up immediately, right? So Jiseok coming so close to actually getting that knockout with Ice Shard, it isn't quite enough. But there is the Meowscarada switch in, and yeah, Dondozo's attack now isn't looking.
It's whatever. It doesn't matter too much.
I mean, you still have to do what you can though, and at least you're stalling for
enough
time here that maybe.
So I guess he probably just
comes into
called
effect.
like Meowscarada staying in and protecting or something.
Order up, going back through into the BAXCALIBUR. That's such low damage now from the Intimidate drops that we've seen from this Tauros on the opposing side. And the Icicle Spear, it's gonna still be making those multiple hits with that loaded dice held item.
Yeah, but this is so good.
And this is in cleanup range now too.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it gets 5 hits, brings it under half. I think one thing you can't help but wonder is if Jiseok
so one more of that just kills. I think it doesn't even need 5 hits.
Instead of going for that Ice Shard, you would have been able to chip away.
May as well just Earthquake, get some chip.
The main thing here is I'm not sure Dondozo
gets the knockout
into BAXCALIBUR.
Anyway,
that order up did okay damage, but it looks like it'll likely survive another one. So there is a decent chance Dondozo just faints after this turn. And so Jiseok found a really interesting approach to dealing with the
so Dondozo's going down.
A lot of trouble.
You're getting a lot of chip off on Tauros and BAXCALIBUR.
And then use BAXCALIBUR accordingly. Great Intimidate cycling here from the Tauros as well. But the question is, you know, after Dondozo goes down, you know, Chupa still has a lot of resources.
Is there any merit to
and so
protecting or switching out Tauros because you know that?
Okay. And, yeah, Jiseok just kind of conserving this Intimidate back and forth.
You risk some damage, but you get better pivoting off on whatever's in the back.
Golden Go come back out on the field here. It's gonna have to take an Earthquake though, so
that's completely fine. It's neutral
on the income, but knowing that there were those Intimidate drops, Golden Go is able to hang on really easily here. And BAXCALIBUR with the loaded
really
dice
nice
just needs those 5 hits to be able to make it through. 4 might even be enough here as well.
We'll see.
And that
Golden Go's probably just here to die.
So Dondozo getting knocked out, but you still have tons of other options here on the team.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that, you know, Chupa's team is still fairly speedy. Tatsugiri is now going to come back out. That Tatsugiri has access to moves like Icy Wind for support. You can use Icy Wind to drop the opposing speed, or you could just go for, say, Draco Meteor immediately to try to finish off the slot.
Okay.
Both players have committed Terra at this point, so there isn't any potential for more defensive Terras. And yeah, I think one interesting thing I'm curious about is kind of the speed interaction between the Golden Goes in this matchup. But I have to say, Choppa has played like incredibly well with Golden Goes throughout the course of this tournament. And so there's a lot of offense right now, but one of the downsides for Choppa is that neither the Masquerada nor the Tatsugiri have protect. And of course,
Golden Go, especially since the Golden Go can't protect. At the end of the day, though, you're going to be locked into knockoff.
Yeah, and that's definitely
why
they're
both choice, right?
Like you see Masquerada is such a nice option to be able to bring in next to that Tatsugiri. You can go for some of that speed control if you want to select Icy Wind here, but also Masquerada is just so naturally fast. And a lot of trainers right now are running it at max speed,
probably comes down to
be able to
Masquerada still being
knockouts, but also ensure that they move before some of the heavier hitters in this format.
Yeah, and exactly, like, this is where late game Tatsugiri is actually kind of nice because with that choice
anyway,
although that Draco Meteor the opposing side and actually pressure with damage, like, don't discount a Draco Meteor from Tatsugiri, right? And so here is the knockoff coming out, and that is just going to get the knockout of Golden Go. And so, yeah, what's interesting here is that,
and now he gets a nice switch in to whatever he wants.
Right now. The knockoff, at least, you have to commit into a certain attack, and the Masquerada on this team has a choice band, so at least now it's locked into that choice band, and it's choice scarf on Tatsugiri. So Jiseok this next turn knows exactly what can happen in terms of offense. Of course, either Pokemon can pivot out into Choppa's final Pokemon, but Jiseok just going for Protector, scouting it out, and sacrificing Golden Go, saying, I'm probably not going to get another move off with Golden Go in this matchup, because it's just slower than everything. You can just knock me out so easily with your Masquerada.
Yeah, well, Masquerada is going to make another appearance, and I think that this is a really interesting position as well because of what Choppa has in the back. Do you feel comfortable and confident enough that you might be able to bring it in? I was almost thinking maybe if we saw the Tauros again, that's just an ideal switch out for the Masquerada, be able to get rid of that Intimidate drop, and also you're able to reactivate Protean if Masquerada does get a chance to switch out and come back in. So you could change your typing again that way.
We'll see.
So kind of available on both sides if they really want to.
Yeah, this is honestly a pretty tricky position for both players. I mean, Choppa having
he's just getting knocked off though.
Helps a little bit. You do have
Goldengo's dead,
focus sash on the opposing
and he's probably sharded.
That Masquerada does not have
and then now the Masquerada's stuck into knockoff and it just loses.
Does not get the KO.
Okay, no, it's okay. So he's dead.
BAXCALIBUR, so Jiseok will be
but the Masquerada is essentially dead. He can't do any damage, and this Goldengo's dead too.
Masquerada ends up targeting into the Golden Go. I think that's definitely going to be really good for Jiseok, and that is a one-hit knockout. Great targeting there. That is so rough for Choppa to have switched that into a powerful knockoff coming in from that Masquerada. Tatsugiri gets to come back in and also has the ability to change up what move it wants to go for. But this is it for both trainers. Their final two Pokemon in this first game.
I was thinking maybe he could like ice. He could have Icy Winded last turn.
There's no potential protect at that position, and like the Masquerada,
then you gotta
could, I guess,
like
flower trick it, but the knockoff, would cover for one, getting rid of the choice scarf on Tatsugiri, or two, if you switch into the Golden Go, then you just get the knockout. So nicely done on Jiseok's end. I think Choppa really going for the switch there, saying, well, I don't really
the play he did make was just lose Golden Go, essentially. Although it was slower than Masquerada anyway, so it didn't particularly matter.
Final two Pokemon from both ends, and the thing for Choppa is that you do have
definitely
choice items on both Pokemon. So the Tauros here going to get an Intimidate onto the Masquerada, and very critically, the Masquerada right now is locked into that knockoff.
Yep, I was thinking the same thing, that you would really in this position almost rather have
like Muddy Water
power
just to
trick
get
as an option, just to be able to be that grass type. Because with Tauros across the way, you do have to wonder, is a close combat maybe heading in my direction? And being a dark type is not where you want to be right there in front of that Pokemon.
Oh, the protect comes out! Choppa had a gamble here, and I'm not sure it's going to pay off as Draco Meteor goes into the protect, and this is absolutely huge for Jiseok right now.
Yeah, this is a huge turn for him as well. I mean, the knockoff too, just going to get protected away. So this Tauros has free reign of whatever it wants to do here, and it's going to be close combat, targeting down Choppa's Masquerada. And so that's
Draco
another
Meteor kills
KO here for Jiseok. It's just the Tatsugiri left.
Yeah, he just maintained his focus touch the entire time, and so he wins because of it.
Obviously Choppa can consider doubling up onto the opposing side, but then
even if he didn't call that protect last time,
and the Meowscarada is stuck using knockoff, and the opposing Meowscarada might actually be able to, you know, just flower trick everything for a KO, but the read goes correctly there. Draco is going to go into Tauros. Okay, it does manage to get the knock out there, but I'm not sure it's really going to be enough. I think 2 flower tricks here certainly should finish up this game, and masterfully piloted by Jiseok, as knockoff here will remove that choice scarf as well, and so Meowscarada now will be able to guarantee moving first in this upcoming turn, and we're going to see Jiseok lead take this first game in the grand finals.
A masterful display there. I mean, Jiseok just had such a nice control of that end game, and being able to work around that Dondozo Tatsugiri was so well done, especially knowing that Jiseok had lost those 2 games in the very first set that they had played in this tournament. Having game 1 right now feels so good for him.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the question in this matchup was essentially how do you deal with the Dondozo Tatsugiri combination, and Jiseok had this really intricate game plan, right? It was like, okay, let me chip away at the Dondozo a little bit first with that Make It Rain, then cycle with Intimidate, and even baited out the rest, right? And the thing is that the Dondozo just, because order up is plus speed rather than attack in this matchup, you just don't actually do that much damage, and so, yeah, I'm actually really curious about how Chuppa adjusts here, right? Because I think it's finally shown, hey, Dondozo plus the Tatsugiri doesn't necessarily just sweep, and the Intimidates are a really major problem. So from Chuppa's end, I think you might want to try to ideally knock out the
just has way too many tools. So long as he has all 4 Pokemon left, he will never ever lose to Dondozo Tatsugiri.
Okay, it's really important for me to conserve the Tauros, and so yeah, I think one of the things is
so if that comes out when he starts 4, then the game's over.
But not actually combine it until the Tauros has actually been eliminated.
Positioning for Dondozo and Tatsugiri is so difficult. I mean, we saw this even when we were commentating over your brother, and just
position in a way where he can remove Tauros, but Jiseok
like, where do you really position him on the board to actually get that combo to work?
We're gonna see, we're probably gonna see the lead matchup where it's just straight up Meowscarada Goldango.
Jiseok didn't even bring the Garganacl. Like the one thing that we were kind of looking at is, well, Dondozo was a great answer to that, but that's not really a threat if Jiseok is able to work around the positioning of that Dondozo Tatsugiri combo and then also just do enough damage.
I agree. I feel like Jiseok's really found a combo that works well here, and I would be kind of surprised if he deviated from the 4. I think like Garganacl, like, still just isn't consistent enough against Dondozo, and it's maybe a little bit too slow-paced. I think it's really cool that Jiseok kind of just pushed the tempo with this team. We've seen him play very defensively with this team throughout the course of the tournament, but in this one, he has a very, very different game plan, specifically
Goldango and Meowscarada are available. Garganacl definitely is not.
Maybe he swaps from the Pokemon. I don't know. I feel like Mimikyu just doesn't really offer very much in this matchup.
He's just going to do his regular 4.
I guess the one interesting application for it is if you, bait out the Dragon Terror on Dondozo, but let's see if it's the same
thing over and over and over.
It is going to be Meowscarada, Goldango.
He's got Tauros and Excalibur in the back.
And hey, would you look at that? It looks like we got some similar Pokemon on both sides here to kick off game 2 of this best of 3. Jiseok does have that game advantage, so he needs one more win here to crown himself the regional champion in San Diego. And this feels like such a toss-up. What do you do here, Aaron?
It's tricky, yeah. I think like one of the things is obviously both sides threaten each side with super effective damage, right? And so it's like, do you go for a Terra this early on just to make sure you survive an attack? For example, the knockoff from the opposing Meowscarada is looking really, really threatening. Chuppa does have that super effective U-turn, but Jiseok has the focus sash on Meowscarada, right? And so Meowscarada is more or less guaranteed an attack off if it wants to actually move, but Jiseok's saying, you know what, I'd actually rather conserve it right now and bring in Tauros to get that quick Intimidate off onto the opposing Meowscarada.
And I don't really worry about
that feels really good here as well. You know, the Intimidate is going to be very helpful for just utility, and then
you still have to Terra Steel in that scenario, so I don't know if that's worth it.
Some pretty awesome options there in terms of attacks. But it's time for a Terra too, so you're going to see one of those Goldango receive that Terra Orb, Terastallizing to that Steel type, just to be able to help out some of that attack that could be coming out from a Make It Rain.
I guess he doesn't really need it on anything else.
Going to change Meowscarada's typing to the Dark type. It does keep Jiseok's Goldango quite safe here. But the Make It Rain coming through, double stab, doesn't have the choice specs anymore, but it still packs quite a punch.
Get some damage there. There's the special attack drop. Now the Make It Rain from the opposing side. Now one of the interesting things we were talking about going into this is, can you actually eliminate Tauros? Because once you do, then Dondozo and Tatsugiri, has a lot more value. So the thing is, though, the Tauros is decently easy to switch into this position, and so yeah, we see kind of a trade immediately here, and it's still, I'd say, a fairly neutral point. And by removing the opposing Goldango's choice specs, like Goldango now has the option to actually just click Shadow Ball, for example. And so one of the questions here is,
Meowscarada still has sash, you might as well let your Golden go down.
Like, yeah, maybe you consider switching it out. The opposing Golden Go here is also, you know, has options, but I think Choppa might be a little bit afraid of, you know, just fainting to a Shadow Ball, for example.
Keeping it on the field's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so essentially what Choppa needs to happen is he needs
just
to
make sure that it's not going to be taking anything super effective here. BAXCALIBUR goes for the knockoff. It does get the knockout here, so Jiseok's Golden Go is not going to be able to get a second attack off. But what is this Tauros going to do?
Okay, I think Choppa just wins the game from here, right? I think there's nothing Jiseok can do now. I'm trying to figure.
From Jiseok, that is a wave crash now coming through.
Protect.
Golden Go's
that's a really good play from Choppa.
Yeah, so
he needed that. He needs, like I said earlier, he needs one single KO and he wins the game.
That's a really big deal. If you can actually pick up 2 knockouts as well, you prevent the Tauros from switching in and out, and that means Intimidate is just so much less valuable, right? You essentially just can really get 1 maybe. And so I think for Choppa right now, you ideally want to just look towards picking up that second knockout as quickly as possible. That's easier said than done, though, of course. The BAXCALIBUR right now is locked into that knockoff, so it's not in a very good position. You know, you can't get rid of either the Focus Sash or BAXCALIBUR. The opposing Tauros has a safety goggle, so removing the item there isn't that valuable. And so I like the idea of considering like a protect here, pivot BAXCALIBUR out, get some repositioning.
I can see this turn going incredibly well for Choppa.
Switch the BAXCALIBUR out,
where he still doesn't lose
Tatsugiri in the back, you risk one of those just coming in and getting knocked out by a double up. So yeah, not gonna go for the double, and it just fails.
Okay, but yeah, doesn't get it. I mean, BAXCALIBUR is still going to be able to use the knockoff into Jiseok's BAXCALIBUR, so no more Focus Sash available, but it's a return knockoff here to eliminate
I think
Choppa's Golden Go. So both Golden Go are off the board.
Dondozo coming
and
in means the
really
game's
looking
over.
at seeing how Choppa
and we know he has
around
Dondozo, so the game's
this position where he doesn't actually just have a choice left. That close combat coming in from Jiseok's Tauros going to finish up BAXCALIBUR as well.
Tauros
so
being on the field and
final 2.
Jiseok missing a Pokemon means I believe the game's over. There's nothing I can see where
safely. I don't really want to take any risks. If the Golden Go faints here, so be it. If it gets the double protect off, great. Then the next turn I can, you know, get the Dondozo Tatsugiri combo by switching out the Golden Go. And the main thing there is, of course, Choppa could switch either Pokemon out, but the problem is the team is so reliant on getting Dondozo Tatsugiri activated. If you switch one of those in, of course, Jiseok could predict that and just get the knockout. So Dondozo plus Tatsugiri is activated, but the Tauros is still around, right? And so Tauros, of course, can pivot out, come back in, get that
Tauros can put up Intimidates all he wants, but that means he has to switch out.
Just across the board in general. And if you're able to get the BAXCALIBUR as it switches in with this order up, you probably just
There's no way.
So, yeah, it's actually a really interesting pin. You switch out the
switches
Tauros
in for Tauros. There's just actually no way.
I mean, at this point as well,
Choppa's reading the option.
Some damage from the BAXCALIBUR.
There's no way Jiseok takes it.
Switching out.
But yeah, that is going to be BAXCALIBUR.
And see, the problem right now is that Choppa's Dondozo is going to get a speed boost, and now he's the fastest thing on the field. And BAXCALIBUR's Focus Sash is broken.
To be able to keep the Dondozo just a touch safer, but that sure doesn't feel good. You hope that you're going to get enough damage down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge turn, right? Like, Choppa ended up going for order up into the Tauros slot.
Yeah, nice protect. But Dondozo still gets the boost through protect, which is crazy. That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah, you get the speed boost, but
just the fact that Pokemon made that decision
hits the field, it is safe,
very interesting.
And now, of course, it can go for you know, super effective attacks,
so you can
right?
just...
And so, yeah, that was really well
positioned.
So
Tauros just protected, so you attack into Tauros, right?
Steel Golden Go was already committed earlier on, so you don't actually have the Terra here. So, of course, you could go for order up into the BAXCALIBUR slot. Now, if you're Jiseok, you could consider protecting BAXCALIBUR, switch Tauros out, and then bring it back in for Intimidate. So yeah, okay, so
BAXCALIBUR goes down.
And then
I believe that +1 Dondozo kills
if he goes for the attack, that is the biggest read of this entire tournament. But he is going to play it safe here, goes for the protect onto the BAXCALIBUR, and so the order up will hit its mark into the BAXCALIBUR on Jiseok's side instead. So you do get that speed boost, and you get a pretty good knockout too.
But
so
now the
BAXCALIBUR's
protected, so you can turn it into it if you wanted to.
This is going to be the one that sticks.
Yep, exactly. And so Dondozo will be at +1 attack, and without the ability to
because the problem is the Tatsugiri is alive, and so at the very end, no matter what, if Dondozo goes down,
the thing is,
Tatsugiri can click Draco Meteor.
One-hit knockout, it might be okay, right? Because you have the rest combination, and so even if you take like 80% of your health, well, you can just heal all the way back up. So I'm wondering now, maybe a critical hit hit, especially from the BAXCALIBUR, is what I think could greatly change things. The other thing to consider is even if the Dondozo faces, there's still the Tatsugiri in the back, and the Tatsugiri can Draco Meteor as well. And so I think
either the BAXCALIBUR or the Tauros is going to die to a Draco Meteor no matter what at the end of the game. Dondozo's going to get one of these guys.
He was able to withstand those first part of the game well enough to be able to get
even if it
Dondozo
gets triple protected, doesn't matter because the Tauros can do enough damage to Dondozo.
So the order up now coming out from the Dondozo. It will be able to land into the BAXCALIBUR, and it is just going to be a knockout here.
I think you'd have to get a
all up to
quadruple
the
protect.
Tauros on Jiseok's side
to
see if he's able to close out this second game. But the speed boost coming through, the close combat into the Dondozo, just absolutely not enough. And the defense drop as well going to be detrimental.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so this was night and day from the last game, right? Like this time around, instead of committing to Dondozo super early on, Choppa was able to bait out the Terra from Jiseok.
I think there's a 0% chance that
you got the steal Terra out from the Golden Go, making it so much harder for the BAXCALIBUR to actually survive this end game. The BAXCALIBUR is a really cool counter if you're able to actually get the water Terra onto it, but without the Terra, it just feels so much worse in this matchup.
Yeah, that was a clean knockout for sure, even with that Intimidate drop onto the Dondozo to just make the commander boost a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, so they're just going to do the same lead again with the same Pokemon.
Incredible set we've had so far, though. We are going to a game 3 in this best of 3. So the winner of this next game will be crowned your San Diego regional champion.
It all comes down to this.
It really does all come down to this.
I think going into this next game, the main thing I'm looking for is how do you accordingly deal with the Meowscarada plus the Golden Go lead. That felt really effective in the last game, and so for Jiseok, there are a couple of adjustments you can make. The first is maybe don't commit your Terra on Golden Go so early.
Like a 0% chance that Choppa Click U-turn into Meowscarada.
By getting rid of that Ghost type, and you no longer feint to a super effective knockoff from the Meowscarada. And so one thing I'm curious about is, did you ever consider leading, for example, the Tauros
in a game 3 scenario? There's a 0% chance Choppa clicks U-turn into Meowscarada. There's no way.
It's a little bit risky,
0%
but if you
chance.
do, then you can at least like pressure Ice Cold Spear immediately into the Meowscarada slot, or even just the
I would never ever
basically,
read that.
to me, I think Jiseok needs to find a different way to play around the Golden Go Meowscarada lead. I mean, Choppa could deviate and not lead that again, but it's felt really effective, and he made it look really strong in the previous one. And I think from Jiseok, the main lesson that you can learn from that last game is, wow, like late game Dondozo is just absolutely so strong into me, even if I consider Intimidate, if I do not have the Terra on the BAXCALIBUR. And so I think he's got to be a little bit more careful about the Terra throughout the course of this game, and it felt like he was forced.
I think Choppa has way too much pressure from playing 5 games against this team.
And so this time around,
4 games now, but going into
a 5th, you don't feel forced to do that just to respond.
I think
maybe you take a coin flip as well if you're looking at these leads once again. Because
they call it a coin flip, but I don't think it's a coin flip. I think Jiseok's just going to win the game right now.
In this game 3, this first turn
he's going to Terra Steel Goldango.
Looking at how Choppa is going to try to navigate this position, whether or not Jiseok is going to end up incorporating that terrestrial aviation onto the Golden Go. There's so many different ways that this first turn could go.
Knock off Goldango, and he's going to make it rain.
It's just the spread of the knockoff that's so scary, right? And the Meowscarada is actually like relatively safe because the opposing Meowscarada does not have something like a super effective U-turn. The opposing Meowscarada only has grass and dark type attacks. So from Choppa's perspective, it's really safe to just launch that knockoff into the Golden Go slot and saying, okay, well, even if you don't Terra, that's fine. I get rid of the choice specs, which is a pretty big deal. So you called it, turn 1 really important here. And let's see, we're starting it off with the Terra immediately, and it's the Golden Go going for the Terra once again.
All right, well, this ended up not quite paying off in that game number 2 the way that you might have hoped to see it. But the Meowscarada going for the knockoff here. We got to see the Protean go through first, but it's still able to do so much damage to that Golden Go.
And now,
Meowscarada able to knock off in return. Calls it. Choppa was going for an attack with that Golden Go, but now it doesn't get a chance to.
Choppa knows it's over.
Wait a minute,
that's single target, make it rain.
Really greedy, make it rain.
It's dead. Single target, make it rain kills.
Single target onto Meowscarada, and that's gonna get the knockout. That's a double knockout to start this game. And now with Dondozo and Tatsugiri in the back, the Tauros can just cycle in for Intimidate and out and in for Intimidate and out. Even if you do, it's like it's a complete disaster there as Choppa plays really aggressively with the Golden Go, and the knockoff just KOs it.
I just don't think there's a single world where
Jiseok really needed to make in this game number 3, seeing the exact same leads. You just didn't want to have that problem of losing a Pokemon so early. So we will see Dondozo and Tatsugiri hit the field here for Choppa as his final 2 Pokemon.
You could always Terra Steel
going to be on this
Goldango
Dondozo to try
prevent all
to
this from happening.
This game, or at least get Choppa into a position
there's
where that
0% chance
might be able to take over after the Dondozo gets knocked out. He's got to do something here, and it looks like he's just going to go ahead and Terra and try to get these earthquakes down.
Yeah, but you know, this time around, like, BAXCALIBUR's out on the field, and it's healthy, right? So you can bring in the Toros, get the Intimidate off, and you know what can happen this time? You can finally use the knockoff to get rid of that Chesto Berry. And so without the Chesto Berry now, well, as soon as you take all this damage, you rest, but then you just have to actually take sleep turns. And so, yeah, that turbo was just so explosive from Jiseok's end, and it would be a completely different game, I think, if Golden comes out, but Choppa trying to play really aggressively and gets punished really heavily. He has a huge uphill battle.
I mean, he's going to be slower,
if there's any duel that can do it in this format with a comeback, it is this combination, but it's actually just going to be a flower trick here.
Well, so, you know, the Terra Astralization there for this Dondozo was quite smart, just going to remove that super effective damage there from that flower trick, and the Earthquake comes through. It is going to do just a little bit of damage here to that BAXCALIBUR and Toros, but you're still looking at such an upward climb. Going to try to go for a single target attack into the BAXCALIBUR now, but this is the cycle that you were expecting, Aaron. The Toros
like I was
goes
saying,
out, the
Jiseok with 4 Mons left against Dondozo Tazagiri is a super win. Even when Choppa has no Pokemon still in the back.
Yeah, one thing that's actually pretty interesting here is that you saw previously the Dondozo was actually slower than the BAXCALIBUR, and that's one of the things.
Oh, and at the end of the day,
like that's why people are running this kind of order upset. And so with that, now you're actually able to outspeed, which is a pretty big deal. We saw the flower trick. I think Jiseok was saying, okay, well, if you don't Terra, you actually just win the game with this flower trick. So I'm going to go for it, right? But as a result, the Chesto Berry actually is still there on the Dondozo, and the speed boost came up now. So I think the last 2 turns playing correctly. That's how Choppa kind of wants things to go. Here's the Earthquake, so we're going to see the first knockout as Golden Go is going to faint.
Yep, Golden Go should get knocked out here. BAXCALIBUR is still going to hang on. But you can see that speed is really paying off in dividends here. That Golden Go now is one more less Pokemon that Jiseok has to be able to roll through here to cycle in those Intimidates. But the knockoff coming through to knock off that Chesto Berry puts Choppa into a worse position.
Do you just switch out
BAXCALIBUR has hit the field now. Of course, you could just pivot out the BAXCALIBUR, go out into Toros, bring the Dondozo essentially down to neutral, and I think you could play it safe here, right? Protect BAXCALIBUR, for example, and cycle in a third Intimidate later on to continuously decrease Dondozo's attack. Make sure that you just don't feint to an order
if you're Choppa, you just straight
because
up
I think right now the key win condition essentially is for Choppa, can I just eliminate BAXCALIBUR before it gets an Icicle Spear off? So there's the switch.
Here comes Tauros.
Yep. Tauros now going to get an Intimidate drop, and at this point too, at least for Choppa, you know that there's no Terra available on Jiseok's side, so you're not going to see that BAXCALIBUR this time around. You did see the Golden Go use it before, so the order up might be really impactful here. It's going to be enough with that. No! Look at those Intimidate drops being so important here for Jiseok, and now the Glaive Rush coming through into the Dondozo. It's still going to be able to hang on, but just barely. We can't go for the rest here either. He won't wake up.
You can rest, but then you're just stuck to sleep. So there's Ice Shard here. And we saw how much it did previously. Dondozo is now eliminated. Tatsugiri will come back out on the field.
Tatsugiri's going to sit here and he's going to Mighty Water everything and hit every single time. And lower accuracy every single time.
Here's close combat is going to go into poor Tatsugiri.
No,
it'll survive for another turn,
I think
Jiseok must be able to taste the championship at this point. He is 1 turn away from winning the San Diego Regional Championship.
I mean, an Ice Shard here would do it. Coming out for the BAXCALIBUR, so that priority move going into the Tatsugiri.
Nice.
And that final knockout crowns Jiseok Lee, your 2023 San Diego Regional Champion.
I just love how calm Jiseok looks. I'm sure as soon as that
he's so happy.
He probably could taste
he's relieved.
He has so many resources to work with, and so I think Choppa is just getting a little bit greedy.
It's awesome to see him come back.
Especially off how like the previous games have gone, and
at least in person,
really heavily this time around. And Golden Go BAXCALIBUR against Golden Go BAXCALIBUR. There's so much pressure from both sides, but the Golden Go just getting eliminated.
Unlike what his thoughts are for the interview.
Even with the Steel Terra from Jiseok's
first ever regional champion of the Scarlet and Violet era of VGC, Jiseok Lee. Congratulations. I know the entire crowd was going hype that entire set against Choppa. We knew it was going to be a great
he looks
set.
He looks so relaxed.
Going to game 3.
That's crazy.
Talk to me about that beginning of game 3
with your double knockout. He's used to winning.
Because it looked like, honestly, how the cookie crumbled. It could have been a really strong turn for Choppa as well. So what was your mindset starting game 3?
So honestly, by the end of the game 2, I thought that my BAXCALIBUR would survive the order up with 1 Intimidate on Choppa's Dondozo.
It was a roll, yeah.
The damage calculation was wrong, so I thought I just had to make a big play from the beginning of Game 3, so I just went for it, and it somehow worked out.
And let's talk about BAXCALIBUR, a regional champion. There's so many Pokemon. Everyone was expecting Murkrow and Garchomp and
I don't even think there was a Murkrow
Pokemon
in top 32
to come out on top. But you had BAXCALIBUR, Paldean, Tauros as well. Talk to me about the loaded dice Tauros, or excuse me, Paldean, Tauros, and the loaded dice BAXCALIBUR for your team, because they proved crucial here.
So I think exactly the reason I expected Murkrow and Garchomp, and BAXCALIBUR has ice moves for it, and the reason I ran loaded dice was that I needed a way to KO Murkrow, and Icicle Crush was not really reliable because of its accuracy, so I just decided to go with loaded dice. And regarding Tauros, again, Sword and Shield reference, I just took it as my Urshifu Rapid Strike, but in Gen 9, and yeah, it outspeeds Hydreigon. Mine does not, but you know, most of the time it outspeeds Hydreigon, and also Intimidate is a great ability, so I just used it. Yeah.
All right, well, we don't want to keep you too long here, so you can go celebrate with your friends. So again, congratulations being the first regional champion in this new era. You have slain the Don as well, as you took down the last Dondozo. So congratulations to Jiseok.
I mean, Dondozo's like an awesome team, but it's good to see people come up with ways to beat it, so people don't just think it's broken. It's a really, really good team.
Huge congratulations once again to Jiseok for...
Very huge congratulations to Jiseok. Incredible congratulations. It's definitely going to shape the metagame for the remainder of Series 1. I would assume, some assumptions I would make is we're going to see a lot more Intimidate for just a little bit, and we're going to start seeing Clear Amulet again. We're definitely going to see a lot more BAXCALIBUR. I don't know about Mimikyu. I think BAXCALIBUR, Tauros, Paldea, Water, and then Meowscarada, Goldango, all going to start seeing more, if not like a lot more use. Not that these guys can get an incredibly lot more use than they already do, being like 40% usage or something crazy. But you know, extreme congratulations to Jiseok. Awesome team, dude. Huge props.